So I'll kick off by welcoming everyone to this session on community engagement. Just as a reminder, the session is being recorded and all the recordings will be available on the Connecting Nature website from next week. My name is Paula van der Gert. I've been working as a researcher and practitioner on inclusive engagement and adaptive governance of nature-based solutions for a number of years. I'm a senior research fellow on the Connecting Nature project and also part of a new spin-out social enterprise called Empath. And it's with that hat on that I'm chairing this session and am ambassador for community engagement on the Connecting Nature enterprise platform. So we'll be organising a few more events over the coming year. There's a wide range of communities of practice on the Connecting Nature enterprise platform. It's really fantastic. Why community engagement specifically? Well, I would argue that it's critical to the success of the transformations we need for addressing our global challenges. And that means not only putting communities at the heart of the journey, it also means ensuring that our communities have the capacities to be the partners in that journey alongside municipalities and professionals. And this is something I think that social enterprises are well placed to help with. So I'm delighted today to introduce 3 excellent and diverse examples of community engagement from different parts of Europe that hopefully can inspire us as we aim to build back better and to tackle these global challenges in an inclusive way that meaningfully involves communities. I'll let the panelists properly introduce themselves, but just briefly, we have Agnieszka and Julia from Go and Sow Association in Poland. We have Philip from Space Engagers and University College Dublin in Ireland. And we have Jesus and Natasha from Social Climate in Spain. I'll invite each of them to present. Feel free to add questions and comments to the chat as we go along. If there's time at the end, I'll get the panel to respond to various points and questions, or we can certainly follow up afterwards if we run out of time. So firstly, I'd like to invite Agnieszka and Julia to share your presentation. Thank you.
Paula, I will share my presentation first. Hope you can see it now. Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, can you confirm that you can see the presentation? Yes, okay. Yes, so hello everyone. We are very honored to be able to present our experience in working with local communities in allotment gardens in Poland. And my name is Agnieszka Dragon, and with me is Julia Krzywicka, and we are both members of Zasiej Association, a small NGO from Warsaw. And so first I will literally say a few words about allotment gardens, and I provide some figures. I hope I won't bore you with this. And then I will talk for a bit about community practices in allotment gardens. And then Julia will tell a few words about a pilot project of opening allotment gardens in Łazarz district of Poznań, and that which we are implementing on behalf of Poznań city in frame of the Connecting Nature project. So, family allotment gardens are quite very popular in Poland, and we have over 4,500 allotment colonies in Poland, which consists of over 900 individual plots, which is quite a big amount In Warsaw, where we are also based as an association, we have 152 colonies, and in Poznań there's around 85 garden colonies. And the first garden was the oldest garden, allotment garden in Poland is Kąpiele Słoneczne, Sun Bathe, because all allotment gardens have names, and it was established in 1897, and the whole idea was inspired by German Schreber gardens, which were intended to serve as therapeutic, educational, and also recreational spaces for children and families, as well to provide food. And all allotment gardens in Poland are associated with under the umbrella association called Polish Association of Allotment Gardens. And this association manage garden sites and also signed agreements with the city or other entities to provide space for gardens. But unfortunately, new gardens are being created occasionally nowadays, but demand also because of the pandemic has increased significantly. And here I will say a few words about community practices in allotment gardens that we are implementing so far in Warsaw and also in other cities. But the first thing is why we are doing this. It's because some of the gardens are closed, preventing access by the local communities to non-gardeners to these allotment colonies. And of course, the main reason why they are closed is vandalism, but also like lack of coordination of the movement of residents and other people inside allotment, and also lack of organization of events. So we as Zasie Association, with cooperation with the management of different garden colonies, we do such practices that invite residents and also invite garden community in order to create events and yes, so here I'll show a few pictures about different community events we are organizing in our colony. So we were organizing harvest days, exhibitions. Also, we're building community compost box in space inside allotment colonies. We also co-organized with allotment gardeners Women's Circle inside the colony in the gardener's house, where we were talking about different aspects of gardening, and also we created small community seed bank. And our main project is a community plot inside allotment colony, where we have different ways of doing gardening, such as companion planting, permaculture gardening, because we also want to educate and involve gardeners to show their practices. And the main very important aspect of community practices is this horti-therapeutic dimension, and which was quite important during the pandemic, when digging in the soil and having a contact with nature was very welcome and demand activity for many people. And yeah, so this is briefly what we are doing. And yeah, so now I will give voice for Julia, who will tell a few words about our current project we implement in Poznań.
Yeah, thank you, Agnieszka, and hello everyone. I'll just share my screen first. And hopefully you can see it now. Can you please confirm with your voice?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just quickly go to my slides. Okay, so I would like to present our pilot project that we're doing in collaboration with City of Poznań, and as Agnieszka said, in frame of a Connecting Nature program. We've been invited by the City of Poznań because of our previous experiences in the allotment gardens or previous activities. We've been invited by the City of Poznań to participate, to implement this pilot project. The name is Sezon Ogródkowy, which we translate as gardening season in allotment gardens. Let's get together. Spotkajmy się na działkach. I will just say a few words about the place we're conducting the project. Here you can see the picture of two gardens, Rod imienia Kopczyńskiego and Rod imienia Marii Curie-Skłodowskiej. These two gardens, as you can see on the picture, are located very close to each other, and they create like a big whole green area in the Łazarz district of Poznań. This area is surrounded by densely built-up area, mainly by resident housing, but there are also some busy streets around, which you can actually hear from the allotment gardens. This location has been chosen by the City of Poznań after selection of more than 50 or 60 allotment gardens in Poznań, also because of this particular position, and there are also a lot of institutions in the vicinity, like schools, kindergartens, culture house, senior clubs, and many more. So there is a potential link between the gardeners and local community. So what are the main aims, main ideas of the projects? So first of all, maybe I have to say that, as Agnieszka said before, the allotment gardens in Poland are very often, or in most of the cases, are closed. So there is a fence between. So there is no free way for the local community to enter or to pass through the garden. So our aim is to open, of course, not entirely, but step by step, open the allotment gardens. We're trying to find links between gardeners and the local community, like schools, kindergartens, clubs, and maybe perhaps the main aim of the project is to arise the public discussion, to start discussion around the important role of the allotment gardens in the cities. The allotment gardens are not only the green area where a lot of different species of plants and animals live, but they also have very important functions, roles in the community. We also would like to minimize the risk of liquidation of the allotment gardens. This process is happening right now in Poland due to the fact that very often allotment gardens are located on the private lands. So owners sometimes want to sell the land to the private companies, to developers, and to, for example, build a new residential area. So we would like to prevent this. Just a few words about the project itself. It's divided in three parts. The first part, which is happening right now, we started in May. It's research. So we are doing interviews with local gardeners, with allotment gardeners. We're organizing meetings with authorities in the local schools, kindergartens. So we're trying to research what are the potential ideas for some collaboration, what might be the potential problems as well. And the second part, it's more active part where we try to implement some ideas that rose up during the first part. So we would like to organize some events in the allotment garden. This might be, for example, yoga session for gardeners and local community, or some activities for children. This is not decided yet. We would like to decide it together with the community. And the result of the project is a catalog of the best practices that could be implemented in the future on the larger scale. As I said, this project is a pilot project, so so we can collect some ideas and then give it as an inspiration to the community. And the first outcome of our research is an open walking tour in the garden that will happen on the 17th of July. If any of you listening here in my presentation are at the day in Poznań, please feel welcome to come and have a look at the garden. We will also invite local institutions and authorities, perhaps also the local police. Just to end my presentation, I would like to show you a few pictures from our last trip to Poznań. We just arrived yesterday night, so these are very fresh pictures. The first one is with a group of allotment gardeners that we met just a few days ago. We already started some very interesting links and collaboration. This woman is, for example, a biologist, and perhaps she will also be present at our walk in the garden and we'll talk about the plants. Here at this picture, you can see us preparing some materials for the map. We will create a map of the allotment gardens with some interesting places to see, like sheds or interesting species of plants. And on the last picture, you can see us documenting the allotment garden. And this is just a few pictures from Poznań, from Łazarz, just as an inspiration. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks a lot, and see you in the allotment gardens.
Thank you very much, Aniska and Julia. That was great and very inspiring to see. I have planes going over, so if anyone can hear planes in the background, apologies. So that was really good. I've got lots of questions, but we'll perhaps wait till the end to make sure that we've got time for them. The one point I would really like to make, Julia, was just, as you pointed out, within communities, there are experts, and engaging with them, identifying them, is a really, really important part of reaching out and optimizing the resources within communities. So now, thank you very much. I'd like to invite Philip now, if you'd like to share your presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Paula. I can see my presentation is up on the screen. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Philip Crowe. I'm a lecturer in University College Dublin. I am wearing my Space Engagers hat today. So Space Engagers was a spin-out social enterprise from a previous project, the Turris project. And we initially started with looking at participatory mapping and engaging communities with their place through mapping. And we've developed on into being really a research collective looking at resilience in towns and cities. So this afternoon, I'm going to present a pre-COVID case study, and it's in a small town called Castleblaney in County Monaghan, which is to the north of Ireland. And I worked on it, as I say, as Space Engagers with an architectural practice called Shaftesbury Architects. And the title of the project itself was actually Revitalisation of a Town Centre for Living Well. So despite being pre-pandemic, I'm hoping this project is of interest because it's an example of meaningful and very targeted community engagement, in this case to unlock the potential of our town centres in Ireland, but at the same time therefore addressing global challenges at the local level, so act local, think global, etc. And in this case it's looking at using existing space and embodied carbon more efficiently, and also creating opportunities for sustainable rural revival post-COVID, where we may have a situation where there are many more remote working hubs. We have reduced commuting, hopefully not reduced community, commuting, and a rebalancing of population distribution and economic activity across the island, all of which is yet to be seen, but certainly it's an interesting time. Just to give you some indication of the context of towns in Ireland, we are very much a nation of towns. About a third of the population lives in a town, and then another third is living rurally and therefore is dependent on towns. So you're looking at sort of 2/3 of the population that are very much connected with towns. We have about 233 that have a population over 1,500 and about 41, I think, over 10,000. And most of them are in decline, I think it's fair to say. Some are not, but the majority are in decline. And they're at a very crucial moment. We describe it as a key moment of change. So that's, for example, in relation to policy, where we're about to get, hopefully in the next few months, a town centre first policy. We have a new climate action and low carbon development bill in the country, and we've new policy in relation to things like remote working as a result of COVID, and rural development. And I started up with a colleague and a number of colleagues in UCD a Centre for Irish Towns, where we understand towns as being distributed centres for the a just low carbon transition. It's on the screen. We acknowledge the ability of towns to facilitate sustainable communities and their crucial role in terms of social cohesion of the nation, in terms of not allowing anybody to feel left behind. So just in terms of where this project I'm going to describe very quickly fits in, it was one of 6 pilot towns on a thing called the Town Centres Living Initiative that the Irish government ran, the Department of Rural and Community Development, and that was launched in 2018. And the brief there was basically for local authorities to use a small pot of money to examine issues of vacancy and the lack of people living in town centres, and then to develop innovative proposals that encourage the reuse of vacant and underused buildings in town centres for living. In terms of Castleblaney, just to introduce it to you, it's approximately equidistant between Belfast and Dublin, and historically, pre-partition, would very much have had more of a connection with Belfast. Its fortunes are very much dictated by being right on the Irish border, which we are all now hugely familiar with through the Brexit negotiations. But now it's obviously facing enormous uncertainty from Brexit, and then is also trying to deal with COVID and the uncertainty there and the impact there. It's a beautiful town with a very intact historic urban fabric, and it has this incredible country music heritage, which is very evident when you visit the town. So statues and music being played, but it faces loads of challenges. So things like an aging population and very much a high level of vacancy, and that high level of vacancy has been there for many years. So each pilot town had to choose an area, a pilot area, and Castleblaney focused on the town centre. And the town centre has this old market house in the middle, which has no roof at the moment. It's completely derelict, but is being supported by various props, etc. And in this area, there's a 16% ground floor vacancy, and that would rise to possibly 70 or 80% if you were to take the upper floors into account. And this obviously has huge implications and consequences in terms of things like housing, in terms of carbon management, in terms of heritage, the viability of businesses and services and amenities, etc. So the brief that Monaghan County Council issued for consultants was for a town centre residential regeneration plan, and that was to identify opportunities and generate interest in residential development in the town centre, and obviously had to take cognizance of existing plans. We have no shortage of beautifully produced, very graphic, glossy reports in Ireland. We maybe have a lack of evidence on the ground of the impact of them. So we obviously had to acknowledge what existed. And our response was that basically Castleblaney does not need, the last thing Castleblaney needs is a traditional master plan. What it actually needs is a mechanism for revitalisation. And that's a mechanism that generates good data, builds capacity to change within the community, and provides human and financial resources. And critically is supported by local people. So it's in line with the project in Poznan, sort of let's get together, that people need to be behind this. The community needs to be behind this. And we were basically saying that the mechanism needed to be based on a formula, which is very crude, but basically is saying that if you have good data and you have collaboration and you have inclusive participation, that will lead to opportunities for innovation and adaptation. And that in itself will lead to revitalization. So I suppose put simply, we were proposing that through this Town Centre Living Initiative pilot, the County Council could prototype a new mechanism for revitalisation where you have a dedicated resource, a person or a team, working directly with property owners on the ground as a mediator and a facilitator and an enabler. And that's sort of recognizing that, you know, collaboration doesn't spontaneously happen always. And sometimes you need to give it support, you need to nurture it and bring it about. Because it may not naturally occur to people to work together, and that can be quite difficult. So it's quite an unusual solution to this, or a proposal. So it was sort of a departure from normative practice, and I would cite sort of three sources for it, one being Patrick Geddes and his conservative surgery approach. I see there's people from Scotland on the call who will know Patrick Geddes very well. So his conservative surgery approach is you take experimental, small scale and local actions, and you hope that they precipitate change. And he also said that you need to, in order to make any transition, he was looking at the transition from an unhealthy, polluted city to a healthy city, you need to bring everybody along with you. And that involves gathering local knowledge together, sense-making together, and co-creating solutions. We also looked at a really interesting program in France called the Revitalisation des Centres-bourgs, which is primarily to do with the reuse of degraded housing that might be very ancient buildings in the centre of small towns, where it just doesn't make financial sense to renovate them, but it's really important to renovate them. But a key part of that programme is not just the money, it's also a dedicated project manager who brings together all these diverse funds that can be incredibly confusing, and all the different initiatives and programmes from the government, and tries to bring everyone together into a coordinated and coherent project. And then also the Scotland's Town Centre First principle, which has been about for maybe 9 or 10 years at this stage, and it focuses very much on town centre living, a collaborative approach, and the reuse of vacant properties as key aspects of revitalisation. So our response was in two parts, and we were very clear we were only ever going to get the first bit done with the funding that was there. And it was very much to do with diagnosis and gathering information and building capacity with community and stakeholders. So ultimately it was data gathering and then a tentative exploration of how willing property owners might be to collaborate to address the limitations of their individual properties and collectively realise the potential, enormous potential of the town centre. And this potential exists right across Ireland, and I'm sure exists right across towns in Europe. So in terms of the diagnosis, it involved many meetings with local experts. There is a regeneration team and a sustainable energy team in the community already, so we need to work with them, but also we met with many local, with the Monaghan County Council, elected representatives and different experts within the County Council. But what I want to talk about today are 3 workshops that we ran, and you can see them on the screen there, and they were to test a hypothesis or a series of hypotheses, which are things like owners of vacant properties are actually interested in adaptive reuse, but actually it's quite difficult to get them back into use. There's loads of barriers, and that collaboration between property owners can help to solve things and move things forward, and that property owners are probably open to collaboration. And that this collaboration needs to be supported, and that a dedicated person or group as a mediator, a facilitator, enabler could be very useful. So moving into those workshops, the first one, so we're looking at just that town centre area. We did a leaflet drop, which seems very low tech, but it actually was extremely effective. We didn't touch Facebook or any other social media. And putting a leaflet into a derelict building does not feel as if it's going to be particularly helpful, but oddly, they were picked up on many occasions, and also then neighbours communicated word of mouth, etc. And so this first one was about listening, and we were totally oversubscribed. It was a property clinic, and the individual property owners came to us on a certain date. They booked into scheduled consultation slots. Everybody was very surprised at it being oversubscribed. The purpose was to meet and learn about their situations and to gauge the level of interest and try and see was there a way forward. And so we were asking them questions like, you know, why is your property vacant? What mechanisms could be put in place to overcome the barriers that you're experiencing? And is there even a demand for town centre living accommodation? And what do you see the role as individual property owners in the revitalisation of the town centre? So the outcomes were very clear that there was a willingness to be involved. There was no question about that, and that there actually is a demand for living in the town centre, but perhaps not the product available. And we got sketches, we got information about property boundaries that you just don't get otherwise, local knowledge, etc. And we identified clusters. As you can see, there's 3 clusters formed. And we had local knowledge as to why these properties were vacant. So we put them into themes, and I won't go through them here in detail, but supports was things like a lack of know-how and the need to have access to expertise. Finances was things like there's no return on investment. So you do these properties up, they're not worth what you spent on them. Confidence, which was maybe a bit of a surprise to me, perhaps naively, but if you are going to invest in a property in the town and next door is a wreck, or the public building opposite you is derelict with no roof, you're not sure where this town is going, so why would you invest in it? And then imagination was to do with the imagining that it's possible to live well in a town centre and overcome issues like where does the bin go, and that you don't have private amenity space to the front, and that there's high levels of noise in the town. But it's this being able to imagine that things could be better. So these are the 3 clusters. You can see this one has enormous space for allotments out the back there would be fantastic, but it's actually in a flood zone across a line across there. But these properties have very long, skinny plots that are not accessible at the rear, except for one. So they're all a bit limited individually, but perhaps collectively could work. And then this one it's very complicated, but dominated by a derelict hotel and an unused car sales place. So that was very interesting, and we kept it going, and we went into the second workshop, and that was about capacity building, and we divided everybody into their clusters, and we were basically trying to bring them together to talk to each other and explore this idea that perhaps collaboration might be worth investigating and moving forward, and also to co-create ideas as to how you would address these barriers to reuse. So the outcomes were that there was a very clear consensus that collaboration was the only way forward, albeit difficult, and that the outputs were things like understanding these barriers and more detailed information on the individual properties, and what did collaboration mean to individual participants. So again, in terms of solutions, in terms of supports with these themes, an independent support worker for property owners came up. In finances, are there alternative community finance initiatives they could use? In terms of confidence, if there were flagship projects like the courthouse being renovated would just inject some confidence in the place. And in terms of imagination, could there be some exemplar demonstration projects, etc. And then we moved on into a last workshop, which was about collaborating to move forward. And again, we used a similar structure or format, and it was really to gauge what could be achieved and how we could move forward. And so we used different design scenarios for this to try and initiate debate and stimulate imaginations. And it's a difficult thing to do because you need to emphasize these are exploratory. These are just generating conversation. They are not firm proposals. And so I'm going to show you very quickly a series of overviews, plans, showing ideas about what could be retained, what assets, what buildings could be retained, what could be removed, what could be added in, what routes you could create across the different clusters, linking different spaces, and what external spaces you could create. So this one looks at special features in the clusters. For example, there's this walled garden that was used to grow flowers to sell in the market in Belfast, perhaps 50 or 60 years ago. And these are different routes through the plots that exist. So it's permeability. And then this is the idea of removing and then adding. So you could create a new housing area made up of these skinny plots if you work together. And then creating more routes through, that could be more consolidated routes. And then future ideas about public realm, and then incorporating other parts, so that you'd start with a cluster and then it would sort of spread. And the outcomes from that were very clear, that it needs to be very, very tangible what the benefits are. People are only going to collaborate if they're going to have some pain relieved, as it were. There's different potentials for working together within the clusters. There's different abilities of people to participate. Different levels of agency to move forward. So some sort of co-created framework would be useful, because people can't move forward necessarily at the same speed. And in response to a questionnaire is a very positive response to continued collaboration, but obviously, understandably, some apprehension and uncertainty and recognition of challenges. So unfortunately, COVID has sort of got in the way, and so the momentum has not been continued, but one cluster is going to be selected, and the County Council is going to move forward with that. And that's going to involve gathering a lot more information, figuring out, it was going to involve co-design with the participants, the owners, but it's going to involve dealing with things like, what financial vehicles do we have? So we're going to need to look at the legal side of things. We're going to need a design team, and critically somebody in place who's going to move things forward and act as this mediator and facilitator role. So I suppose to wrap up, this was a very short and relatively modest project, or part of a project, looking to see how we can unlock the dilemma that we experience in our town centres, particularly in terms of vacancy and underpopulated town centres, tentatively seeking to understand how and if property owners might collaborate, based on the idea that individual efforts are never going to make it. We need to work together at a larger scale. The project's very much located in the discourse on the low carbon transition. We need to use our resources efficiently. And it emphasizes that collaboration is absolutely critical for bringing everyone along. So let's get together, as the project in Poznan is named, in order to address complex societal challenges, and the fact that collaborations may not happen spontaneously. You need to nurture them, they need to be supported. And that, I suppose, post-COVID, the need for working together to realise the potential of our town centres, to build back better and to facilitate sustainable communities must only have grown stronger. So thanks for your attention. And I will stop sharing if I can find the button. There we go.
Thank you, Philip. I think that's something that will resonate across Europe with towns where ageing populations are an issue. And vacant properties, etc. We're now going to move to Spain, and I'd like to invite Jesus and Natasha to share your presentation now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Paula, for inviting us. I'm Natasha Wahlberg, and together with Jesus Iglesias, who is also joining us today, we are the founders of Social Climate, a non-for-profit cooperative that works on initiatives and projects to face climate change through social innovation. Today, we would like to talk about how we use nature for climate to engage communities and also to boost social entrepreneurship in two of the initiatives we are working on. Our sweet spot on this two initiatives that we're working on are natural basis solution and local economies, and all the standards and methodologies related with them to develop the two initiatives that we are going to present. The first one that we use to community engagement is the climate journey. This is a sustainable tourist initiative developed together by Social Climate, Livery Association, who is specialized in empowering young people and also rural development, and Explora Malaga, who's a travel agency leader here in Malaga in historic and cultural tourist for responsible tourism. The climate journey are physical and conceptual itineraries across the cities and territories around the climate emergency, where we see the current and future's impact. We understand the cause and the connection with these impacts, and we experience and be part of the solution, what it's the most important part for us, talking about natural basis solutions, local economy, art and culture, direct democracy, and social mobilization. We know it's a systemic and complex perspective, and also that it's a very intersectional discipline, but we think it's a really good way to approach the climate crisis through the population. And also the participant has the possibility to develop an action plan once the tours ended, so they can develop their own strategies and actions to face climate change. We think this kind of initiatives are very necessary because first of all, allows us to connect impacts, costs, and especially solutions, because it's very important that people knows what they can do to face climate change, because it's also help us to bring climate change down to concrete, close, and immediate issues. Also to link it with all the major social movement, see this big picture of the climate change, to guide local communities through our local collective and transformative actions, and the most important, to show the positive impacts of change, especially regarding health, well-being, and equity. The journey has different formats. We have the free tours where the participant decide at the end of the tour how much they want to pay for the experience. We also have custom tours where the client decide the itinerary and also the content of the tour, always for sure related with the topics that we work on the climate journey. We also make climate excursions with educational centers, schools and high schools, and other kinds of activities like gincanas or escape rooms. We have our own chapter in Malaga, but we have collaborated to create a chapter also in Madrid with local partners there and also in Barcelona. And right now we are developing a new one in the city of Granada. We also have the possibility to develop rural journeys with Rancho Limón, who's a rural space belonging to Libero Association, where we can develop different workshops, activities, cultural initiatives to link this aspect and rural aspect of the climate change. The impact that we had in the last year and a half since we started the climate journey, which started in November 2019, was we have developed 20 tours in Malaga, 11 free tours and 9 private for entities like the University of Malaga, IUCN, Erasmus, Red Cross or Greenpeace, where 269 people participated from over 20 countries. So the impact, having in mind that we have developed all this initiative during the actual pandemic, it's quite impressive for us, and we are very happy with the impact that we had in the community. We also have the possibility to present the climate journey in the COP25 celebrated last year in Madrid because of the COVID situation that couldn't make possible to make it in Chile, and we hopefully will have again the chance this year in the COP26 that will be celebrated in Glasgow by the end of this year. And now I leave my business partner Jesus with the second initiative.
Hi everyone, hello. Thank you, Natasha and Paula and the organizers. So if the climate journey is what we call a transition project, which we use to render visible existing initiatives that are part of the solution to climate change, now we're going to present an actual new economy project, an eco neighborhood in Lagunillas, a very particular neighborhood in Malaga, southern Spain. Next. So the neighborhood of Lagunillas is very peculiar in the sense that it faces a variety of social environmental challenges like climate change, like gentrification and touristification, but it also has plenty of potential in the sense that there's a lot of social mobilization going on in there, also a lot of urban art, as you can see here, cultural performances and different types of engagement from the local community. Next. So our mission in this particular neighborhood is really to revitalize it, to regenerate the social fabric, and also the to face the urban decay that has been a huge issue in this part of the city, and do it in a way that is environmentally responsible and contributes to create equitable jobs and green jobs. So who we are, the founders, it's a team of 8 people, 4 women and 4 men. So it's nice to have gender parity. And we're very committed. We come from different disciplines, from tourism, from agri-food, from environmental education, from climate action, etc. It's a very complementary team. Next. We come from 6 different organizations. As I said, the first one, Verde Quimera, is the actual heart of the project. It's an agri-food store. It has been operating in the neighborhood for 2.5 years now. They reached almost 300 customers, and they're really transforming it from the aspect of food, agri-food, local food. Next. So, as you've all indicated before, we believe in collaboration. It has to be a fundamental part of the solution. Both on the local level, we engage in with the different associations and even local commerce, local shops, but also with the public administration, the university, and on the global level, we are partnering with IUCN. You know, this entity is the reference player in the field of environmental conservation. Local Futures is a a pioneering organization in terms of economic localization, and others, including the nature-based solutions cluster in the city. So the project revolves around an NBS, an actual nature-based solution, which is the rewilding of a plot of land here, a community space, and a green roof that is going to be part of a green corridor, linking together a mount, the castle on top, and a university area, El Ejido, which has several green areas in there. So we're going to try to connect these two green spaces through a green corridor and contribute to the rewilding of the city. Next. There's another one before that, another slide that sometimes is hidden for some reason. No, it doesn't appear. All right, so leave this one. Yeah, the one more, the one before.
There's no slide before.
Yeah, go to the previous one so I can see the map, just to show the map. The previous one? Yeah, here, okay. Next, all right, here. All right, if you can see here, the actual agri-food store is located there. Right in front of it, there used to be a cafeteria, just shut down during the pandemic. So we're gonna open a cafeteria / restaurant / catering service, little shop, and on top of it, the flat is also being left empty, and now we're gonna use it as a co-working / incubator space. We're gonna incubate and empower entrepreneurs that want to contribute to the local economy and want to rewild the city. So it's once again at the intersection between local-based solutions, and this is done in the framework of a collaboration with the actual Horizon 2020 Connecting Nature project. We've been inspired by the Glasgow NBS Accelerator, and we're actually trying to come with an event to present these two projects, the Glasgow Accelerator, NBS Incubator, at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow, taking place in November. And on top of it all, there's this terrace, the rooftop, where we're gonna develop like a community space and also rewild it, convert it into green roof. So at the end of the day, this is gonna be a cluster, speaking about clusters of local economy. It is, sort of starts by the access of food. That's the main thing, gather people together around food and around culture and the arts. But we're also gonna bring people together to work collaboratively and develop small businesses that actually create jobs in the neighborhood that are much needed. So this is it. If you got questions, it'd be a pleasure to address them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, Natasha. That was great to see both those projects. It's been, so as you can see, that was a really diverse approach, I think, or we've seen diverse approaches to community engagement here in different parts of Europe. I suppose things that really have struck me, Philip, you said the importance of listening. I think listening is so important, and often there's no time to listen properly. I think meaningful community engagement, as we're seeing, involves working at a very granular level often and takes time to build trust and relationships, and that's skilled work. And I think that's where social enterprises can play such an important complementary role, municipalities and professionals, in terms of catalysing, facilitating and working with communities, and to help ensure local people have the capacities to be equal partners in nature-based solutions or any of the other solutions that we're going to need. So before I ask lots of questions, I'm just going to quickly check here. But certainly in terms of our first, taking us back to our first presentation, one of the things I would really like to know about is how are you finding, are there tensions between the individual plot owners, you introducing a community garden within their site?
I can start, and you can, Julia, continue. So yeah, that's a very good question, because we had to find a balance between like individual needs and community. But because status of allotment gardens in Poland is actually is regulated, saying that allotment owner of the plot, owner of the land. So any individual, including myself, because I'm also allotment gardener, I don't own the land. I just own a hut, this little house, trees and plants. So yeah, maybe that's the answer. It's not my land. I can I don't mind to people to pass on the common plots, because this land belongs, it's a common common land. So this would be first aspect of this. And the second is we should maybe be more fragile or sensitive to the needs of the whole community. Also because allotment, yeah, so that's the second thing. We should be more sensitive, also because of the climate crisis and needs of the community to have an access to the green space that allotment gardens provide. And the third thing was I forgot, but maybe I was thinking about. No, maybe Julia, if you have something in mind, then I could add. I have something, but maybe it will come later.
So the question is like how to combine those needs, like needs of individuals and the needs of community, right? I mean, Agnieszka mentioned that you don't own the plant, so the situation itself caused it's very temporary. Some people, just buy the land and then sell it in a few years. So, and some people know about the risk of demolition, for example, of liquidation of the allotment gardens, and they don't want to create or build like fixed solutions for years. So they don't want to invest in not only in the material things like sheds or plants, but also they don't want to invest maybe in creating, local like community engagement. So I think it's, for example, maybe I'll give you some example from our project in Poznań. I showed you at some point, I showed you a map of two allotment gardens. So basically between them, there is a narrow piece of land which is devastated. It's a wild nature. It was due to the fact that before there were normal allotment gardens, but at some point the owners of this land requested to get it back, have it back, because they wanted to sell it to the developer. At the end, this didn't happen, but the land is now abandoned and nothing happens. So our project, for example, is also would like to raise awareness of this fact, and also perhaps I would like to, in collaboration with, of course, City of Poznań, make a project in which maybe City of Poznań could buy this land and create maybe a public space, you know, like a park or something. So it's a very complex, a very complex thing, I think.
Yes, sorry to spring that question on you, but it was something that was in my mind. I think there's also a question for Natasha and Jesus about how your social enterprise started up.
Do you want to answer, Jesus, or? Okay. Well, Jesus and I meet, I think, like 5 years ago, and since then we had some collaborations. Last year, when the lockdown started, he contacted me saying he was willing to start something by his own, focusing on climate change, sustainability, local economies, and try to develop a better future for everybody and starting local. And as I knew him and I knew how he's like a professional, and our vision and values were totally in line, and I had been working for other people for 10 years, so I was also willing to start something by my own. We thought it was the right moment, even with the crisis, because we think that probably now more than ever it's really important to develop new business model, new ways of productions, and people has to understand how important it is to act now on climate change. So that was the main reason why we started this social enterprise. I don't know if Jesus wants to add something.
But you just described it beautifully. We actually celebrated our first anniversary last week, so it's been a great journey. And part of that journey is we are transitioning away a little bit from international consulting projects into more local work. And within that line, I think I met the manager of a local agri-food store like 2 years ago. We've been collaborating ever since with the climate journey, and now we're seizing the opportunity of the pandemic, leaving many vacant places in the neighborhood to actually revitalize it through, food and through co-working and through incubation. So we want to be part of the revolution locally, one neighborhood at a time. So yeah, we are kind of transforming ourselves in the process.
It's excellent work, and there's been a very nice comment from Jan Wood on the chat, and I don't think we're going to have a chance to answer this in the 2 remaining minutes, but she's wondering if you will connect with other similar projects in other countries and share experiences and wins and problems. And I think that's something that through the Connecting Nature Enterprise platform and this community engagement community, it would be really great to program more dialogue around this. So let's all keep communicating around that. It's been fantastic to hear from all of you today, and I think there's been a lot of food for thought and great ideas to inspire us. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap the session up now because we've run out of time, but thank you everyone for participating and enjoy the rest of the conference. Next there's a networking session, which I hear is great fun. You can just talk to all kinds of different people, and an opportunity to visit the expo booths. And then there's the policy dialogue. And I believe that Social Climate are pitching, is that right, a bit later? So there's a lot going on. And to remind you about the event poll on market support needs. And yes, thank you all very much. It's been a great session. I've really enjoyed listening to you all. Thank you. Bye, everyone.